Hey listeners, it's Kara, your host. After 176 amazing episodes and hundreds of book recommendations, I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great read. The Bookish Lights Roadmap is your guide to all 175 podcast episodes, sorted by genre so you can quickly find the stories that fit your reading mood. From picture books to adult novels and everything in between, it's the perfect way to explore past episodes and discover new favorites. You can find your copy of the Bookish Lights Roadmap at www.bookishlights.com/read/roadmap, or just click the link in the show notes. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. In today's episode, I am chatting with Matthew G. Matson. Matt is a writer, speaker, social mystic, and spiritual leader dedicated to cultivating sacred human connection. As the founder of Between, an innovative and highly inclusive global faith community, Matt invites people to embrace curiosity, conversation, and shared moments of meaning. His work blends ancient wisdom with modern insights, helping people find the sacred in everyday encounters. He lives in Colorado with his wife and daughters, where he finds glimpses of the divine while running mountain trails, sipping black coffee at local cafes, enjoying hazy beers at neighborhood breweries with friends, and savoring food from around the world at his family dinner table. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Kara, I am really glad to be back on the show. It's like, what an honor to be a return guest on a podcast. I didn't screw it up the first time. I feel great about it.
Yes, and you're right that I didn't mention that if you remember Matt's name, he was way back on episode 27, which at time of recording was 150 episodes ago, which is wild to think about.
Yeah, but it's so fun. I loved, I said to you when I reached back out to you not too long ago, that conversation was, I think, rooting for me. That's not the right way to use that word, but like it helped me establish roots. Like sometimes saying things out loud in the conversation that we had almost like made them more real. I was in the early phases of starting the ministry that I run back then, and our conversation, even discussing the books that we had chosen, the book flight from that day. I think maybe underlined what the work that I was doing and some of the stuff that felt like it was new and fresh at the time and maybe wasn't fully stable. Just having the conversation with you, it was so meaningful to me, and not to be overly on brand, but it was a sacred conversation, Kara. I really think back to it often and just deeply appreciate it. So thanks for what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad. I feel like when we say things out loud, right?
Mm,
That is when you're like, oh, okay, this is what I'm really doing.
yeah,
And sometimes just saying it out loud instead of living in our head and ruminating and marinating on it, right? I
yeah,
think that makes a big difference. So I'm
yeah.
glad that I could have been a part of your journey.
You were a big part. Thanks.
Yeah. And since the other thing I didn't mention in our intro, but you had a book come out yesterday called Cathedrals of Connection. So you have a published book now as well.
Yeah, so you just said when we say things out loud, they become real. Well, when you write them down, and then when you go through the long, painful process of finding a publishing partner, and then go through the long, painful editing process, like then they become real. They become very real when you do that. So thanks so much. Cathedrals of Connection did come out yesterday, I think, based on
Yeah.
when this episode comes out. We're recording a little before that particular date, and so that none of that quite feels real. So that was a fun thing for me to say in make believe.
Yeah.
But
It's
and maybe
coming. Time is
it's
ticking
coming.
on.
That's right. That's right. That was fun because the process. I'll tell you, I think this is true for every author. I've read this, in so many accounts of people who have gone through the process of writing a book and sharing a book with the world. But it has taught me many things, patience primary among them, that it just takes a lot of time to put something like this out into the world. And I'm really, really proud of this book. I'm grateful that I get to share it.
Yeah. And having obviously met you through the podcast and followed your journey, I couldn't help as I was reading it. I'm always so impressed by authors, but I'm like, how did he do this? Like, you just have such a way with words. Not only are you a great speaker, which I picked up on when I interviewed you way back when, but just even with your words, it has been an amazing read for me. And I feel like a very timely read. And we had connected over creating community, right? Like that was something that's still very important to me as a military spouse with this transient
Mhm.
lifestyle. But your book is just that.
Thanks, Kara. The way I wrote this book is not unique. There's a lot of books that are written in
Yeah.
this style, this format, but it was new for me in the way that I wrote. I don't think I had ever really written this way. In fact, I said on an interview not too long ago that I never really considered myself a storyteller, like a good storyteller.
Yeah.
I always thought in bullet points. I feel like I approach the world very tasky sometimes. I'm focused on, what are the 8 steps to getting this job done, and I've always been good at that. And so to take a new approach writing that is deeply story based, truly personal, intimate was intimidating to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. Being
And
vulnerable on a page that's
oh,
permanent.
right. And I write about and I've taught for years about the importance of being vulnerable, but then I just had to do it. Like I really had to do it in this
Yeah.
book. And that was scary and wonderful. Like it opened up it was like growing a new limb. I don't know if that makes it, but it was like,
Yeah.
I had no idea I could do this. This is a whole new way of being in the world, sharing stories like this, making meaning out of very real, sometimes very ordinary, but very personal and very emotional parts of my life. And so I'm a little scared to put it out into the world, but mostly I'm feeling proud and grateful that there might be people who will find value in these stories.
Yeah. I have a guest that's come on. Her name was Hadley Ledger. I quote her all the time because she
Mm.
says, because nobody rates your baby on Goodreads. And
Mm-mm.
that's what I think of a book
Oh
is
gosh,
your
yes,
baby, right? And but
yes.
no one's out there rating it on Goodreads. So
No, no, no. Let's hope nobody invents an app that is rate that person's baby. Let's hope that
yeah.
that's not a thing. That's a
Well,
hilarious quote.
yeah. Well, for listeners that maybe haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, can you tell them about Cathedrals of Connection?
Yeah, this book is an invitation, Kara. That's by the end of it, that's what I realized I was trying to create. I was trying to create an invitation for people who might might have experiences with faith or with religion or with spirituality that they're not sure what to do with. And this is an invitation to a sacred conversation. Pull up a chair in this book and sit down with me over a cup of coffee. That's kind of the style through which I wrote this book, as though you, the reader, and I might be sharing a sacred cup of coffee in your local coffee shop, a
Yeah.
warm cup of tea, whatever you like to drink. But we're sitting across from each other, having a real conversation, sharing real stories, and trying to make sense of the world through the lens of faith, but I hope people will find I take a very light and very humble and very uncertain approach to the conversation about faith and spirituality and religion. And so this is an invitation for people who maybe uh, have encountered faith but become disenchanted by it, who have been parts of religious institutions and just been slightly disappointed or even been hurt or traumatized. It's an invitation for people who don't talk about faith ever,
Yeah.
who feel like a little tickle in their soul but don't know what to do with it, don't have a space to work it out with other people or to discuss it with other people. And it's an invitation to that space over and over because maybe the thesis of the book is that any encounter we have, any conversation, any interaction we have in our life can be sacred. It can be a cathedral of connection. We might be able to meet our understanding of God right there in the space between ourselves and the next person we encounter. And I lightly offer a framework for how that might happen. I offer my own five. This is so embarrassing, like five, the five elements of a sacred moment of human connection, and I offer that like with gritted teeth and my eyes rolled back in the back of my head, like I don't know, but this
Yeah.
is if I was going to make a guess about what are the things, the choices that we need to make to create a moment that feels truly sacred. Here's my offering to the world. I may change I may change my mind tomorrow, but this is what it seems like today. So I'm this book is full of stories. This book is lots of short chapters. This book is playful, irreverent, and not. I'm not trying to be too holy here. I'm trying to just be a regular guy having a regular conversation about things that are way beyond my ability to understand. But I think that each of us have permission to try to make sense of in our own way.
Yeah. And I think light is a great word that you're using from having read it, right? Is just, it's nothing that, it's not like stuffy or very dogmatic. Like it just really is like, I mean, to use your words, like a light, open up the conversation, but realizing that I think if we take the time to make connections with the people around us, right? And that's not just with like the friend down the street, like that's in any interaction you have
Yeah.
and you slow down enough to realize what that interaction means, which I think is a lot of faith. From my humble understanding, is we
Mm.
have to slow down to see it.
Yes.
And I think, in in this case of that connection with others, but slowing down to see the person next to us.
Kara, in a little bit, you're going to ask me to offer a book flight, and
Yeah.
one of the books that I want to talk about has me, has kind of smacked me across the head with that idea of slowing down to see it,
Yeah.
slowing down to notice it. I think so many, part of what I want this book to do is to help people see their interactions, their daily conversations, their encounter with a friend at a coffee shop, sure, but also their when they bump into a neighbor at the grocery store real quick, or when they're talking to a stranger at a school function for their kids, or they're at work at in a meeting and chatting with somebody. I want to invite people to slow down and to see how special that moment is and how real that moment can feel when we try to turn down the noise in our life and really pay attention. And when we do, maybe we can see in each other and within the space of that interaction and within the energy of the interchange and within the emotion behind that person's eyes and within your heart, maybe we can see in all of that something that for eons humans have been pointing to and calling God or calling divinity or calling something holy and special and ineffable and not quite fully understandable or nameable, but is real and is beyond us and is between us. And that's what I really hope for. And so, yeah, anyway, there's a book that I'll offer later on that really is kind of knocking me upside the head and helping me like think about the importance of slowing down, turning down the noise, really trying to tune into people. And that takes work, that takes
Yeah.
practice, that takes intentional choice and conscious decision making to want to make that a part of your life.
Yeah. I can't help but thinking of my dad in reading this because my dad had this knack. We couldn't go anywhere when I was a kid without him running into someone he knew. And
Yeah.
I would always be like, "Ah, dad," because he was a talker too, right? So it's not only just running into someone, it would be like this 30-minute conversation that I'd get stuck at the breakfast, cafe
Right.
or whatever, wherever we were. But my dad had that ability to make people feel like they were the most important people in the room. And it didn't matter who you were.
Yeah.
I mean, it was people from all walks of life. And I think that I have tried to emulate that in my own life because I think there's something to be said about, like, in my mind, it's always like, I want someone to feel better after our interaction. And
Mm,
whether that's me smiling to the neighbor as I'm pulling my trash cans out or
yeah.
talking to the clerk at the grocery store or whatever it is, it's like, I want to leave you better than I found you.
Yeah.
And that's just my simple way that I try to live, like the example my dad showed me. But really, I mean, that, and you're saying it's like, that's faith in itself.
Mm. First of all, that's beautiful, and what a way to describe a family member. Like to, and what a lesson to take and to apply to your life. I just want to leave people a little, uh, whatever the good stuff is in the world. I want to give them just a little bit more of that
Yeah.
in this interaction. What a beautiful way to approach people. Uh, Gosh, that is faith. I think, Kara, this ends up being a message that I try to put into words toward the end of the book, uh, and I think I keep wrestling with. I can't quite get it right, I think, in the way that I'm trying to say it, but it feels to me like all of the world's faith traditions, all of the love-filled faith traditions and religious practices and spiritual concepts, all of them point us to something really, really simple. I mean,
Yeah.
all of them have symbols and rituals and practices and music and prayers and liturgy and gurus and all of it. And all of it seems to point to this. The way you encounter the next person
Yeah.
can be heaven, can be everything that this whole faith thing is about. It's just trying to get us better at that next encounter. That's it. That's the whole world is
Yeah.
in that next encounter. I don't know if I said it right there either, but like it feels like there's so much of faith that is in essence just pointing us in that direction.
Well, I think that's why faith is a lifelong journey, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have it right. And I'm not saying that when I say, like, oh, this is what I try to do. I don't always have it right. Like, there's days I'm kind of grumpy or I've got 7,000 things and I'm
Yeah.
frazzled, you know? But truly, like that at my core, like you said, just each day to be better. And I think you had said it before, we have a choice
Yeah.
to do that,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's, you have the choice in how you're going to show up in
Yeah.
that interaction.
Yeah, I hope, something I always worry about is that, okay, I'm going to put out a book. I'll be on a bunch of podcasts. You find me on social media, and it looks like Matt Matson is the guy who is the best at creating sacred social encounters. And that's not true. I'm not even the best in my own house.
Yeah.
You were talking about your dad. Like my wife is that way. I am always impressed by her and always like, anywhere she is, she knows somebody and she'll stop and I mean, just genuinely care for them.
Yeah.
And I am in a hurry. Like, let's go. Let's go. Anyway. And I know, but
Yeah.
I'll go home and I'll write a blog and I'll write a chapter in a book about how you should slow down and care for people. And I'll just be like, come on, honey. Like, let's go. We
Yeah.
got people to see. We got things to do. We got, a schedule to keep. And I admire people who really live that live that fully and live that not without trying. That's not real. She has tried and she has
Yeah.
practiced, but it becomes so natural for my wife Megan, and it is a muscle I have to exercise all the time to get better at or to be even acceptable at in public. That's part of why I focus on this. Part of why I've built a whole this between ministry that I lead is an entire global faith community about the sacredness of human connection because I know how much work I have to do in that
Yeah.
particular area. And so I've kind of leaned into it.
Yeah. I think that we all have our strengths, right? And we all have our weaknesses. And I think, again, slowing down to recognize those in yourself too and know where you might be challenged to show up a little bit differently or how, and it's different for every person, but you have to
Yeah.
take the time to, even see, to slow down in that interaction. But then I'm always find myself like reflecting after the interaction of like,
Mm,
I could have handled that a little bit differently. Or, but that also takes slowing down to even think about it again.
100%. Wow, what a good point. It takes slowing down to even thinking about it again. I think how rarely sorry, I'm trying to put a couple ideas together in my head because what you just said was really, really important. Earlier, I said I never really thought of myself as a storyteller,
Yeah.
or that I even had stories worth sharing, mostly because anytime I was at a party, I would try to share a story and, I wouldn't really know the end of the story and I'd start it and then in the middle I'd get lost and then toward the end it would just fizzle out. And so I became self-conscious of my own stories,
Yeah.
and sort of nervous about sharing stories. Of course, the easy stories for me to remember and reflect on were the ones where I screwed up in public or I screwed up in front of somebody and I went
It's like it
home and
imprinted.
100%. Yeah, I'd take a long shower and just think about how dumb I was in that interaction. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But part of writing this was me maybe maybe inviting everybody to consider how many ordinary stories in your life that you have that if you look back on, if you slow down, Kara, to your point, if you turn down the noise for a few minutes and just reflect, how many stories do you have that you actually have encountered something sacred in ordinary interactions, in ordinary conversations, in these moments of your life that felt like regular moments of your life? But if you look at them through the lens of, I'll offer this language, if you look at them through the lens of, was God maybe there?
Yeah.
Did I maybe meet some essence of the divine in that encounter? It can recolor so many of the stories of your life that you may not have even considered before. And I think when we do that reflectively, it allows us to walk into tomorrow,
Yeah.
maybe like craving that a little bit more, and maybe understanding what it took us in the past to get there, and so that maybe we could repeat it tomorrow.
Yeah. I think that it's also I mean, this is just so timely of a conversation because our societies are so fast paced.
Yeah.
We are also glued to our devices. So we're not even making eye contact with people. I
Mhm.
mean, I think just continuing to have this type of conversation to show people that there's a different way. And again, it's not meaning like, okay, do this better, but there's so much of our society that is like we're just going negative in my mind, right? Like we're
Yeah.
divided, we're glued to devices, we're running from the next thing to the next, and we're not even taking the time. But I think we need these reminders, and I'm going to continue to need this reminder of taking the time to slow down, to look up, and to really acknowledge who's in the room or around me at that time.
This book is a very, very tiny contribution to the healing of a lonely, divided, disconnected world. I I really believe the reason faith points us to the space between ourselves and the next person we encounter is because that's the only place where we will heal the brokenness. That's the only place where we can fix all these human-made problems that we've created all around us that are keeping us apart and
Yeah.
that are creating wedges between us. The only way to fix it is to show up with each other. And I know that's uncomfortable sometimes, and I know it's easier to stay at home and to post on our devices about what's going on out in the world. And there's nothing wrong with that, except if that is keeping us from the one place where healing can happen, if that is keeping us from the one place where we can do a little bit of fixing and a little bit of repair for our world, then it is a problem. And so you're invited. You're invited to create a cathedral of connection with the next person you encounter, a temple of togetherness. You're invited to just get together in real ways, name it as sacred, and find out what healing can happen, find out what beauty can show up in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, as you're saying, like we sit on our devices and we have a conversation on our devices. I feel like there's just so much that can be like misconstrued via text, right? Or
Yeah.
I feel like it fuels a lot of anger, right? Like there's a lot of anger, I feel like behind the screen sometimes where, like you said, keeping it together, opening up a conversation, like a face to face conversation, I think is where we win.
Yes, absolutely. I won't go into the whole story, but there's a chapter in here about uh, this guy, this guy who when I was volunteering for my local church, and I showed up to like our board meeting, our council meeting for the church, and this guy was like had been at the church for I don't know 40 years, an older
Okay.
guy, and he was a senior board member and real nice guy. And I said something in the meeting that ruffled his feathers a little bit. Um, I didn't think anything about it, and I left. And well, soon enough, I get an email from this older fella who I barely knew. I encountered him a couple times in church and in
Yeah.
that council meeting, and the email just it started with like, "Dear Matt, um, uh, I'd like to get together to learn more about you." And suddenly I was like, uh-oh, like this guy is pretty upset at me. But he emailed me and he's like, let's go to coffee because I'd like to understand more about you. And I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna be this is and this
At
was
least
like,
he opened it up that way, though,
well, and
right?
that's the thing. He was this hero, like this. He's kind of a gruff man, just kind of like when you encounter him first impression, you're like, this was the sweetest thing anybody's ever. I mean, because he
Yeah.
and I were in very different political spectrums. He and I saw the world very differently. Generationally, we were like all these different things, and we named those things at coffee. And he couldn't have been more authentic in what he actually wanted. He just wanted to get to know me more, so that he wouldn't live with the assumption he had built from when I had ruffled his feathers in that meeting.
Yeah.
What a heroic thing to do in this
Yeah.
world. This is maybe generationally that was a normal thing for him to do. It is not a normal thing to do for most people
Yeah.
today, I don't think. And what a scary, brave, heroic thing, and became a beautiful invitation that was really sweet. And once we named our differences, once we named, well, this is what I think and this is what
Yeah.
you think, it became like a really chummy, friendly, like coffee that we found not just common ground on what we were talking about, but we kind of established trust with each other that allowed so much more to happen after that. So anyway,
Yeah.
that is I think that's what it's supposed to look like in real life. And that is like actually easy to say and very hard for any of us to actually do.
Yeah, I think so much of, that saying of like agree to disagree. I feel like we've lost the art of that
Yes.
sometimes. But that is exactly what this conversation was, right? Like you weren't going to
Yes.
change each other's opinion, but it was like, okay, but we can find common ground elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, wow, you've already kind of mentioned it, but what did you learn about yourself through writing this book?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I shared a little bit about, my ability to have stories and make meaning out of some ordinary stories in my life. Patience, I think I mentioned mostly through the publishing process. That's a big thing that I learned about myself. I think I learned that as I have new encounters, even with the people most important in my life, the people closest to me, my kids, my
Yeah.
wife, that I have to just continually make choices to have the relationships I want or that I crave that are beyond ordinary or that um, I see as extraordinary, or I can see the extraordinariness in the ordinary interactions with my wife and kids. It's funny, like, this is a book I'll put out into the public, I'll share with the world, and I'll have lots of cool conversations with people. And it's dedicated to my two daughters. And I kind of mean that really literally. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of wrote this just for them. I hope, millions of people read it. But most importantly, I hope they read it now and I hope they read it in the future because this was a way of me laying out like what I really hope. I hope my kids, the lens through which a lens through which my kids can see the world. And I know you asked, what did I learn about myself? And so, but maybe that was it. Maybe it was like writing down what's if my kids are curious about spirituality in the future, if my kids are exploring faith at different stages in their life, what's a gift I can give to them? What do I actually think? What do I
Yeah.
actually believe? What do I what do I want them to see in the way that I act in the world? And I think I was trying to put it down in writing for them,
Yeah.
like just for them. So I don't know if that's the right answer to your question. It's a heavy question, because you do learn a lot when you're writing a book like this about yourself, because
Yeah.
it isn't this isn't about me. It is about me, and all those things can be true at the same time.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a big word at you and don't like push it out, but I feel
Mm.
like it's a bit of your legacy.
Uh, yeah, that's. I'll be honest. I'm approaching 50 years old here in the next
Yeah.
couple of years, and so words like legacy are becoming more and more a part of the everyday conversations I have with people that are important to me. What is this life that I've been living all about? And there are parts of that question that can be, I don't know, a little self-centered or a little like self-inflating. And I don't know. I think I've always lived my life in a way where I thought I want this to mean something. I want to leave a footprint here that's meaningful, that is beautiful, that I can be proud of, and that my kids can be proud of. And I know people won't remember me forever and ever, and there won't be a statue of me that lasts thousands of years. But at least for right now, for the people around me, can I leave a trail of breadcrumbs that they can follow towards something good and beautiful, and then they can make their own path from there.
Yeah.
Gosh, I hope so. And yeah, I think this book might be a little bit of me where it's trying to write down some of that stuff for
Yeah.
people that matter to me. Yeah,
And I think, like you said, very simply, like it's dedicated to your two daughters. So even
yeah,
if that's your influence right there,
yeah,
is your two daughters. I mean,
yeah,
that for you is simple and humbly enough, but it is
yeah,
a legacy for them.
yeah, yeah. I hope
Yeah.
so. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about who you are as a reader. So, what type of books do you enjoy?
Yeah, so I read a lot of books like the book that I just wrote. I read a lot of books that are nonfiction. I read a lot of books that are faith-ish, spiritually-ish, and that's I think I've always kind of done that. Right now, I'm doing a lot of that almost like for my own professional edification. I'm
Yeah.
really trying to just listen to voices, different and diverse voices around me as they reflect on ancient wisdom and try to make meaning out of it in today's world. And so a lot of the books that I read and the books that I'll share today are that are sort of these books that take these old ideas, this ancient wisdom that comes from sacred texts and comes from old traditions and comes, that is hidden and unearthed in places around the world, and how does that make sense in today's world? Ask that question in today, like in everyday regular people's lives today. How does it make sense? And I think that's what I gravitate toward a whole lot. I'll read some memoirs. I'm reading. I'm slow reading Anthony Bourdain's book that
Oh,
kind of made him famous.
yeah.
The oh, I can't think of it right now.
Is it No
Confident
Reserve?
Kitchen, no,
No,
Kitchen
Kitchen
Confidential. Yeah,
Confidential. Yeah.
yeah. I'm really slow reading that right now. That's one that I'll like pick up. I'll read a chapter and I'll come back to a couple weeks later. That's just sits on my nightstand. But that is the same thing, I think. I think he, even then, at that point in his career, he was trying to make meaning out of food and out of the way that we feed each
Yeah.
other and out of the chaos that surrounds that. And trying to take, he was trying to find wisdom that was like kind of buried underneath that and the way that we relate to each other around that and his whole
I love
legacy. I
that.
think I'm a huge Bourdain fan. I've been watching a bunch of his stuff lately, so didn't mean to
Yeah.
go that direction. But yeah, I think there are so many people in so many different ways who are trying to take these old ancient ideas and try to make it make sense in some practical or some some way that reflects a truth that we all feel inside in our regular, everyday, real lives today. So I'm drawn toward those types of books.
Yeah. And even if our circumstances might be incredibly different, right, than like
Yeah.
the ancient times, but we probably still grapple with similar emotions or similar struggles. And
Oh
again, just
yeah.
maybe in very different contexts. But the more I read, the more, especially like the historical, like you said, historical fiction, even, it's just,
Yeah.
wow, we grapple with a lot of the same things, but maybe it's a different, like, different circumstance that got us to the boiling point where we're like then challenging ourselves.
Yes, I am. Uh, Anytime I look at old, like ancient sacred text, if I look at the at Bible stories, I will. I don't know. People will critique me about this, and that's fine. I always look between the lines. I always look at the part of the story that isn't told. I try to pause and think, this person, this character in this Bible story, like, okay, if this person existed and if this person said anything close to what is written in this and has been translated 1,000 times and okay, if so, like, what else? What else do I not know about this person? Like, how do they act when they go home at night? What are they actually worried about here? I that is my favorite part of encountering sacred text is
Yeah.
the unsaid part, the unspoken part. And I never claim to know the answer to those things. I love to wonder about all the rest of the lives, the real fears and sorrows and losses and grief and hopes and dreams and joys and the things that make them giggle and the dumb things that those characters would do, like in with their
Yeah.
buddies. Like I love to just try to think about these human beings who are grappling, to your very wise point, who are grappling with the exact same stuff you and I are grappling with, later today.
Yeah. That's why I love when I can get the stories of the Bible in context because I'll admit, I'll be the first person to admit, like, there's a lot of times I don't know historically what was going on in Galilee or
Oh,
Jerusalem
yeah.
or wherever. So when it kind of sets the stage of like, well, this is what was happening around them. This is why they were going or,
Yeah.
traveling through the desert or
Yeah.
whenever you can get that bit of context outside of that, I think it helps to make so much more sense because you can then do that, right? Which, like, when you read the Bible straight through, you're not always getting that. So you have to seek
Yeah.
that out a bit. Like,
That's one of my favorite things to do is to, when there's like an old Bible story or whatever that is like, this person traveled from this place to this place. I like to think about the road trip. Like they
yeah,
didn't get in a car. Like maybe they jumped on a donkey or they walked or they had to get in a boat to go to this. Like, oh, well, did they have snacks? Like they took road trips.
and there
It's
was no,
right there.
yeah, no
These are
gas
real
station
road
on the
trips.
side.
100%. They had to stop somewhere. Somebody had to pee too many times on the way. Like all of it was regular. Like
Yeah,
these were regular people doing regular things and left a legacy that lasted in a really meaningful way, but left legacy through really ordinary things. I think
yeah,
about I won't get into the Bible too much, but like Paul, like all the letters and epistles from Paul, these are just half of these are just him like being frustrated with this group of people that he had set up in this town, and he's like, "Come on, guys! Like, can't you do this a little bit better? We're trying to
yeah,
do things." And like when you read it through that lens of like, "Oh gosh, this guy is just frustrated. He's just tired. He's just somebody who's trying to do good work, and everybody around him's hard to deal
yeah.
with." It
Herding
like
cats.
100%. It becomes kind of a beautiful, weird but beautiful story. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how in your busyness do you find time to read?
I read. Oh, so the reality is, I'll read. I've been shifting to reading on my phone more often, like the Kindle app on my
Yeah,
phone. Only because, like, I like to buy physical books. I'm surrounded by physical books in my office and in every room. And I collect them. And
yeah,
sometimes I buy them and never read them, and but I've got piles of books all over, and it's a whole lot easier for me to turn off the lights at night and
true.
have like read off my phone before I fall asleep. And so a lot of times that's where I'm spending. I love the days where I actually have a little real time to read a real book and hold a book in my hands. I really do. I also I'll jump into the argument on audiobooks. Yeah, it's a real book, and yeah, I really read it, and I love audiobooks. And in
Yeah,
fact, audiobooks in the voice of the author. I think last time I was on here,
yeah,
I talked about an author who I consumed via audiobook that I just love because it was her voice. And I still do. In fact, there's another book today I'll offer to you that is from an author that I listened to this book, and it helped me stay in the story in a different way that I might not have if I had been reading it in a more choppy, in the middle of my day or at night
Yeah.
before I fell asleep. And so, long road trips, audiobooks are really fun for me. And at night, I read a lot. And in the mornings, I read a lot, but often on my phone. And then every once in a while, I get a quiet afternoon where I can pick up a real book and hold it in my hands and devour it.
Yeah, my youngest, he climbed in our bed at 4:07 this morning, and I was like, okay. And I normally get up at like 4:30 for these recordings.
Yeah.
So, and my daughter was already in our bed from who knows what time last night.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have a king size bed.
I love it. Yeah.
But I'm like, well, I might as well just get up at this point. Like, and then I came downstairs and I had like 15 minutes to read by the time I got my cup of coffee, and it was glorious. Like, as much as it
Yeah.
was kind of like at first, like, oh man, it is early.
Yeah.
But I had just like this 15-minute quiet moment. And I feel like that sets up my day in such a way that I start out better. I don't know how else to describe that, of just having 15 minutes of dark, quiet peace to do something that I want.
Absolutely. Yeah. In the warmer months, I live in Colorado. In the warmer months, I will get up, grab my cup of coffee, and while the kids are all bustling around, uh, I'll go out on my back patio, my little back
Yeah.
deck, and I will sit in the sun and I will have my coffee and I'll read for 10 minutes. And that is I don't need much more in the world, Kara. Like
Yeah.
that is fine with me. That's about as good as it gets. It's funny. My wife and I were talking about planning a vacation, and I was like, well, wherever we go, I want like a little patio wherever we're staying. Just I don't care. Just
Yeah.
give me a little
Like not a
patio.
hotel room.
Nope. Just give me a little patio. I can sit on quietly, drink my coffee, and read in the morning, and it'll be vacation. Like that's all I need for vacation. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Well, you have brought three new books with you today for a book flight. Can you tell us how you chose these books?
Uh, uh, yes. So, first of all, I wanted to grab some books that I had read relatively recently, and all of these are this year in the last 6 months, probably.
Okay.
Um, these books are on theme as well, I suppose. I think I didn't come up with a hot tagline. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
feel like this. I'll let you do that. You can figure that out for the
exactly.
title of the
That's my
episode,
job.
but. Mhm. But I do think that they speak to sacred human connection through different voices and from different angles.
Okay.
All three of them do.
Yeah.
Both,
Perfect.
and I say sacred and human connection, the intersection of both. That's a lot of what I do. That's what my book is about. But these look at the idea of sacred, and they look at the idea of the way that we connect through lenses that include power, that include diversity, and that include silence, for that matter, and how those things might interact with the way that we encounter one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, what's the first book you brought today?
The first book is titled A Flame by Pico Iyer. Um, I'd never read any of Pico Iyer's stuff before. Iyer is the
Yeah.
last name for the
Okay.
listeners. Um, uh, but he's written a lot, and a lot that I think I would be very interested in. It's funny. It's like I discovered somebody who's been out there forever that I just didn't know anything about and had never encountered a book of
Yeah.
his before. And this book, gosh, I loved it. It's like written as though you're reading his journal entries. So
Okay.
it's the stylistically, it's a little different than maybe what I expected. When I first
Sure.
started it, I was like, I'm not sure I get it. And then I kind of got into the flow of it. It has its own rhythm. It has its own, um, uh, you become really intensely related to the author uh, because it is uh, kind of journally. It's
Yeah.
kind of
Like
like,
his
oh, you're looking
personal.
inside. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is how this guy thinks. This is how he's not writing for me. He's writing for him. And this, I get to see that. So it is, this is a nonfiction book. So Pico Iyer is a journalist. He's a travel writer. He lives half the time at his home in Japan. His mother lives in California or lived in California, and
Okay.
he split his time. And he is a globetrotter. He is this is again nonfiction. This is a real person. The author. He's
Yeah.
a globetrotter. He's all around the world, visiting places, travel writing, all this stuff. And he has built this relationship at this hermitage, this like monastery, this place where these monks live in California above Big Sur, this little hermitage up in the hills up there, where he goes and visits about 3 or 4 times a year, and he'll spend 3 or 4 days there, and he will just mostly connect with silence.
Yeah.
And this book is written in a way that it makes you encounter the same silence that he encounters in this really healing, really recalibrating way. I loved this book. It was so surprising to me because I didn't even know what it was, to be honest. I don't even know how this book ended up in my hands. Sometimes I probably read half the back book cover and I was like, yeah, this seems like good. I was in a mood to
Yeah.
buy a book, do retail therapy, and just bought this book. And gosh, it spoke to me in a way that I needed speaking to. It reminds us of the importance of turning down the noise,
Yeah.
of encountering silence, so that when we go back out into the world, we might encounter each other differently. I was listening to a podcast that he was on, and he said, "Silence is non-denominational and available to all of us." He really talks about how in silence we can get in touch with our own humanity, and that allows us to get in touch with the humanity of other people. And so I just love he demonstrates in this book in his own life a pattern of encountering the silence, of going to he names that he's privileged and knows that not everybody can just go retreat to a hermitage in the hills of
Yeah.
California 3 or 4 times a year. But in the ways that we can do those things, in the ways that we can turn down the noise of our life, that can be so transformative as we encounter one another. The other metaphor in the book is fire. Yeah, and the book is called A Flame. And in very real life, the hermitage that he goes to visit um, encounters wildfire, the California
Yeah.
wildfires seasonally. And Kara, you understand the weight and the heat of those
Yeah.
fires. And eventually, this hermitage burns down, and his mother's
Wow.
house burns down. And so these are very real stories. And he approaches telling about these really devastating things also through the lens of these wise, quiet, humble monks who live in this hermitage, in the way that they understand how nature and they are encountering one another, and the power of the world around them, and the smallness of each of us, and the importance of tuning in to every moment that we have because of all of that. And so
Yeah.
I won't drone on and on and on about this book, but A Flame by Pico Iyer is a beautiful, beautiful memoir, reflection, journal piece that is spiritual. But by the way, Pico is doesn't believe in God.
Wow.
Pico is lives half the time in Japan, like sees the world through this giant global lens, and writes so beautifully about the faith and the spirituality of not only the people he encounters on this hermitage and out in the world, but his own.
Yeah.
That
How
is,
interesting.
oh, I love it. I love how invitational that is. It says to anybody who's out there, um, walk into these big questions of life, these big questions of faith or spirituality in your own way,
Yeah.
and encounter it in your own way. It's a really beautiful book.
Yeah. I thinking actually as you've been talking. So I have one time in my life I did a silent pilgrimage. It was a 3 day silent pilgrimage, and I didn't know a soul when I went. So I was
Wow.
very, and the point of me bringing up this story is I was very nervous about how this was going to go, right? Not only being silent, like I didn't know if I could even do that, and not knowing anybody within this. And I'm like, a little comfort of, well, okay, I don't need to talk to anybody because it's meant to be silent, but like I can't bring a book to close out my night. Like I feel like I should really be I mean, I could have, but I recognize that this was me to like to take the time to really sit with my faith on this journey. So I bring that up solely to say that it might feel a little strange to think about going to do some type of silent thing, right? And it's disconcerting, and I mean, there were so many like apprehensions, nervous energy I had, but it ended up being incredibly beautiful. And I left thinking I need to do that as much as I can. So I bring up that story solely to say that don't be afraid of the silence. Be open to it.
No.
It'll change your life.
Kara, I want to know everything about this pilgrimage. Can I, you don't have to tell
Yeah.
the whole story right now. This is
Yeah.
your
It's in
podcast,
good old
but
Wisconsin, actually.
in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Oh, will you tell me more? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
so there's the only, so I am Catholic, but there is the only Vatican approved Marian apparition site is outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin, which
Yeah.
I never knew, like growing up near the border of Wisconsin, never knew. I also wasn't Catholic as a kid. So, um, but I went, it was a women's retreat and we started, I don't remember even the town. I couldn't tell you the name of the town we started in, but we walked 40 something miles
Wow.
to this pilgrimage in silence every day. So, and then, every day we would stop at like, the breakdown of 12, 13 miles. We spent the night in a church basement one time. I mean, we stayed
Wow.
in like accommodations of the community, but every day was silent. Of course, we would commune for dinner in the evening, but the rest of the time was silent. And then you end on the feast day. I can't even remember what feast day it is,
Mhm.
but one of the Marian ones at this site. And then it was beautiful. I mean, it was incredible. And one morning we walked up to a convent and they were cloistered nuns in this convent. And
Mhm.
there was, I mean, if you know the Midwest, there is nothing, right? It's so flat and it was in August, so the corn was pretty high.
Yeah.
And the sun's just coming up over the hills because we would get an early start, or not even hills, over the cornfield,
Mhm.
let's say. And there's all of a sudden you see this convent and it's just stunningly beautiful. And we went to mass at this church, and that's why we went early, because we wanted to make it in time for mass. And the singing was incredible. Like the acoustics in this chapel
Wow.
were amazing. And it was like, I mean, it's just nothing. I mean, it's just those moments of like, okay, God, I see you. Like, I don't know how else to really, I mean, here's my lack of storytelling. Like, I'm like, I don't know how else to describe it, but it ended up being wonderful.
No, that is part of the reason you don't know how to describe it these are the wonders of spirituality. Like this is why what a the that feeling of like I don't even know how to describe it
Yeah.
is that's your soul knowing that it doesn't have words for this. What a cool story, Kara. And I want to I let's do the rest of the conversation
Yeah.
about the idea of pilgrimage. So let me offer. I only brought three books, but my fourth, my dessert pairing
Yes, I love
that
it.
I'll offer, because you brought up pilgrimage. I just well, a few months ago, I finished this book, the Santuario de Chimayo.
Okay.
So there is a little tiny church in northern New Mexico in this
Okay.
tiny, tiny town called Chimayo. And I've known about it. I have not been there.
Okay.
I go down to New Mexico pretty often. We've got a little vacation spot that we go to down there quite a bit. We go to Taos, New Mexico. We
Yeah.
love it down there. It's a
I've
very
heard that's
spiritual
very
place.
spiritual.
Oh,
Yeah.
love it. And this is about, I don't know, half an hour away, 45 minutes away. But I have not been to Shimayo yet. But I
Okay.
read this book because I'm so fascinated. I'm excited to go there, but I kind of wanted every year, like 10,000 people or something
Wow.
make a pilgrimage to this church on Good Friday.
Okay.
It is, I mean, this is in the dirt roads, the hills of
Yeah.
northern New Mexico. There's nothing around there. And all of a sudden, thousands of people show up and take a pilgrimage to Shemayo on Good Friday because it's known for this miraculous healing dirt. Like people scoop dirt out of the ground in the chapel, and then it's long. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, the book it's written by looks like Brett Hendrickson. I actually didn't remember the name of the author, so I pulled it up.
Okay.
But the Santuario de Chimayo, I'll send this to you, Kara, so you've got it in writing. But it is this is just a history book. It's like about the history of this
Yeah.
chapel, and honestly. not a book I would normally read because it's kind of like thick. It's not a new book. It's been out like this. This is kind of just some historian writing about this old chapel and about the the Spanish colonialism and American colonialism and the native peoples and the Mexican people and how it's all kind of intertwined there and the way faith shows up in
Yeah.
this really provincial but beautiful way and the way the larger Catholic Church has exerted power and who really owns the land and so many actually really interesting
Wow.
themes. But the idea of pilgrimage I really, Kara, I'm kind of trying to plan a Good Friday pilgrimage to Shimayo this year.
Yeah.
And I love that you share that story. That's
Yeah.
so powerful. That's so cool. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But anyways, I mean, as we're saying, like be open. And
Yes.
I think now, like I already have kind of said it on here, my silence is in the morning. Like that's why I get up
Mm,
at the crack of dawn to have
mm,
some silence. And because we might not, like you said, be able to take 3 to 4 days away. So just
yeah.
find how you can create that space in your life. And
Yes.
it is a choice, right? Like, do I want to roll out of bed at 4:07? No,
No.
but here I am.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but okay. So we really digressed a little bit. So
We
let's
did.
go on to the next book of your book flight.
All right. Well, I'll be a bit more efficient in my
You're good.
recommendations here. The second book, Holy Envy by Barbara Brown Taylor. Barbara Brown Taylor. I recommended a book by Barbara Brown Taylor last time, something like Walking in the Darkness, or I don't remember
Yeah,
the title
learning
of
to
that
walk
book.
in the
You're
dark
learning
because
to
I
walk in
read
the
it
dark.
after you taught. I was like, oh,
Oh, did
I
you?
have to
Yeah,
read
that's
that.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love that book, and this is another book from Barbara Brown Taylor. Holy Envy is a little bit lighter of a book.
Okay.
This is actually she taught for years. She taught Religion 101, like a freshman level religion
Okay.
class at Piedmont College, a little school in Georgia. And she's an Episcopalian minister, and she's now a pretty famous spiritual writer, and famously disconnected
Yeah.
from her own faith and wonderfully deconstructing, reconstructing model of the way that we continue to evolve, how we believe and how we encounter the divine. She's a wonderful example of that. And this book is cool because it's kind of roughly set in her classroom, her teaching
Oh,
first year
okay.
students
Neat.
about the world religions. And so, it explores Hinduism and Buddhism and Judaism and Islam and Christianity really respectfully and really critically and even playfully at times. That she tells stories about taking her class on field trips to these worship experiences for these different world religions there in the Atlanta area or around Georgia. And those kind of light stories make way for really deep insights about, for her own faith or her own Christian
Yeah.
tradition. Um, and and she really speaks to this idea of holy envy, this idea of the way that we can sometimes see other religions and only see the really good parts of them or the really bad parts of them, and to not understand the complicated human divine encounter and mixed upness that is inside every faith tradition. And so, a really cool way, if you don't have a lot of experience with Buddhism or Hinduism or Judaism or understanding world religions and maybe recognizing some of the themes that flow within them all and some of the differences between them all. This is a really fun, approachable book written from a lens that is really welcoming and inclusive and open-minded and open-hearted, and kind of written from a something that Barbara Brown Taylor is really good at is self-awareness. Like
Yeah.
she is openly uh, aware and sometimes critical of her own faith approach, her own faith understanding, her own lack of knowing how to see the world or knowing how to encounter the world and that's a really cool thing to just watch somebody humbly approach faith in a way that is also really brilliant and really wise. So
Yeah.
Barbara Brown Taylor, super fun. A lot of people may know this quote from from her. I actually don't know if this is from this book or not, but I love this quote from her.
Okay.
You see it all the time. But the only clear line I draw these days is this: when my religion tries to come between me and my neighbor, I will choose my neighbor every time. Jesus never commanded me to love my religion. That's Barbara Brown Taylor. I offer that because I feel like I see that on social media all the time, and so people may be familiar with that quote. That's Barbara Brown Taylor, and um, it's a great example of the way that she approaches her own faith and the way that she approaches all religion. So anyway,
Yeah.
strong recommendation, Holy Envy.
Yeah. And I think that we, as humans, right? Like we don't have it all together. And I think there's so many of us that question faith, whether we admit that or not. And so
Yeah.
it sounds like this is a really great way to just see like someone who, has made a name for herself in this space, but she still questions. And
Oh,
she, I
absolutely.
think when you see that, you're like, oh, okay, all right, whew. Like I don't have to have it all
That's
together and
right.
I don't have to
Yeah.
have the answer to everything. And, but so I think these books are really important for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then what's the last book you brought today?
Last book might be the one that has rattled my brain the most of these three.
Okay.
The author's name is Megan Watterson,
Okay.
and the title of the book is The Girl Who Baptized Herself. The subtitle is How a Lost Scripture About a Saint Named Thecla Reveals the Power of Knowing Our Worth.
Okay.
So this book is half memoir, sort of Watterson's own personal stories, and half kind of a colorful feminist revealing of this old text. So there's a there's a old ancient sacred text called the Acts of Paul and Thecla
Okay.
that was unearthed at people knew it existed, but it was kind of unearthed at the Nag Hammadi dig back in whatever that was, the 40s or the 50s. This
Okay.
where they found a bunch of old scrolls, right, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. Or this
Yeah.
is a similar. So the Acts of Paul and Thecla is this. So non-canonical means that's not typically included in the Bible that you buy at the bookstore or that you got from your church, but this old story about early Jesus followers or the early Christian church. And so Thecla, I don't even know if I'm saying her name right, but Thecla is the character that is at the center of one of these gospels, one of these
Yeah.
stories, the Acts of Paul and Thecla, and she, as the center of this story, is this character who claims power in a way that does not show up in a whole lot of other uh, uh, sacred texts, ancient
Okay.
stories, especially from the Christian tradition. But a woman who claims power in the most beautiful way throughout the story in the Acts of Paul and Thecla. And the way Megan Watterson writes about her is just this. Thecla has this refusal to conform to patriarchal expectations. She baptizes herself. She is rebellious against these oppressive systems all around her. And it's interesting, Paul, Paul, I mentioned Paul earlier.
Yeah.
Paul, a pretty famous character from the Bible. He's in the title of the Acts of Paul and Thecla. Paul is a pretty secondary character
I
in the
haven't even heard of it. I'm
no,
like, yeah.
I hadn't either, Kara, and I've been like kind of diving deep into that world for a long time. I've read a lot of in non-canonical stuff, sort of that stuff. I love that. I love all the stuff that's on the edge of sort of traditional faith world. I'm so curious about that. But I had not read any of the Acts of Paul and
Yeah.
Thecla, and so this book is so colorful. Truth is, I got home. This is the book I listened
Okay.
on a road trip, audio version. I got home and I was telling my wife about this book. I was like, I don't know how they haven't made this into a movie. This is like Gladiator. This should be a Ridley Scott or whoever should be directing the
Yeah.
movie about Thecla. It is such a compelling, such a rich and like drama filled story. And the way Megan Watterson writes it is really, it's both drama filled and also really revealing and really beautiful and really tender uh, about Megan Watterson's own life. And so this book was really cool. Surprised me. I didn't even
Yeah.
know this is one of those books I downloaded on, Audible or Spotify or wherever I was listening to a book. And I was like, I don't know what this is. Let's push play. And wow, I was
You got sucked
captivated.
in.
Oh my gosh. I love this book. Love this book.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I am so intrigued. I'm like, oh, I got to go learn more. So that was The Girl Who Baptized Herself by Megan Watterson.
That's
Well,
right.
thank you so much for bringing those books with you today. How I love to end our show is with a speed round of questions you can answer really quick.
Okay.
Are you a rereader?
No.
Okay. What's one book that has changed your life?
One book that has changed my life. I don't know, Kara. That is I don't know. The Cathedrals of Connection by
Yeah.
Matt. I'm just kidding.
No,
No,
I was
no,
like, but it
no.
could be like at different point, right? In different points and
Yeah.
different times of our life, I think this
Yeah,
question would
yeah.
be.
Man, that book or that question is so heavy. Can I give a really dumb answer? This isn't a dumb answer. It's just an answer that I'm not sure is the best one to give today. But How to Win Friends and Influence People, I
Oh,
read when I
yes.
was about 22 years old. And that book actually helped my business partner and I start our early company, which, by the way, was all about human connection, about
Yeah.
helping people develop deep, meaningful human connection, which I had always said to him, doesn't this feel spiritual? And so a lot of the ministry work that I do right now, the book that I wrote today, I can draw a direct line from this book, me promoting this book on this podcast, all the way back to reading How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie when I was like 22 years old
Yeah.
and being shocked that this book that was written in the whatever that was written in the 30s or the 40s or whenever Carnegie wrote that, that book was still so deeply relevant in my real life as a young adult living in Chicago at the time. Like that,
Yeah.
that absolutely changed my life. That's the right answer.
I read it. There was an episode, I think it was shortly after yours came out, and someone brought it as their book flight. So then I read it because I'm like, well, I never read it. So I mean, that was
Yeah.
only 3 years ago. And I also had the same, like,
Oh
I
yeah.
cannot believe this book is still so relevant today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's in like heavy truths that you're like I could that's a book I should reread. And but I think about some of the lessons in there. Like I remember just being awestruck at the simplicity, like the obviousness.
Yes. Like we know these things.
Yeah, but we don't do them. Like
Yeah.
and of course this is why our world is disconnected anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Okay. All right. Where is your favorite place to read?
My favorite place to read, I'm going to go with my back deck in the morning. Second favorite place, or tied, is that little place in New Mexico, in Taos, New Mexico, that I mentioned. My
Yeah.
front porch down there in the morning, in the cool morning, wearing a heavy sweater and like sitting on a little chair out there as the sun's coming up over the mountains is doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. That sounds wonderful. Well, and lastly, what are you reading next?
Great question. Which of the 30 books on my nightstand am I
It's getting
reading
picked up.
next? There's a book that I have in front of me right now, and it's a book that I haven't started yet. It came out very recently by Caitlin B. Curtis. It's called
Okay.
Everything is a Story. Everything is a Story. I follow
Ooh.
her on social media, and
Yeah.
I really, she's just one of those people that everything she posts, and it's not like she's just like a regular. She's a regular person in the way that she
Yeah.
posts, and everything that she posts is just so. There's something really charming about her, about the way that she shows up as a quote unquote influencer, and an influencer in the sort of progressive faith space.
Okay.
The subtitle of this book is Reclaiming the Power of Stories to Heal and Shape Our Lives. And I think this book has a lot to teach me and fits into the theme of some of what we talked about as
Yeah.
I've reclaimed some of my own stories as a way to understand myself better and to invite people into sacred interaction more. So everything is a story by Caitlin Curtis. I feel good about that answer.
Yeah, that feels very fitting to our whole conversation. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me today. I know your time is precious, and I appreciate all you've given me.
Carrie, you're doing great stuff. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Matt Matson, including his book flight of books that explore sacred human connection through different connections and different voices. We'd love to hear what other books you'd pair with this book flight at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.